3 spine-chilling true jogging encounters that expose sinister secrets and rediscovered horrors. Clara's sneakers pounded the pavement like a heartbeat, steady yet frantic. The evening air thickened with shadows, thick enough to choke out the laughter that usually floated from neighboring porches. She loved the simple routine of her evening jogs, the rhythm of her feet, the cool breeze against her sweat-soaked skin, but tonight, that comfort twisted into something darker. It was the 3rd day in a row that she felt eyes on her. It happened when she passed the derelict Lincoln High School. The place had been a forgotten relic, left to rot under tangled weeds and peeling paint. Always warm under the summer sun, it now radiated an inexplicable chill. And there he was, a man, perfectly still behind those overgrown weeds, his eyes glinting like a predator. She froze for just a moment, heart pounding against her ribcage. Was he even real? She stepped forward, shaking her head to dismiss what had to be her imagination. But something had shifted. All day long, mundane worries became tipped with fear. She tried to shake it off. After all, this was a safe neighborhood, or at least, that's what she told herself. Yet each night, she returned to that spot, the same sense of unease creeping up her spine like ice. Her mind raced back to conversations with neighbors about strange occurrences, missing pets, disappearing people. A couple whispered about an elderly woman last seen walking her poodle, now nowhere to be found. Clara could feel it in her gut that something sinister was brewing. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As her evening runs barreled toward a crescendo of blood-curdling tension, Clara couldn't shake the feeling of inevitability. A heaviness settled in her chest. After one particularly difficult day at the office, she returned home, heart heavy. But the quiet as she opened the door was thick, oppressive. "Emma?" She called out, but the silence was oppressive. The air around her shifted, and that stillness turned sharp, like a steel blade. Panic clawed at her throat. She dashed through the house, checking every shadowy corner. Outside, the unfriendly street lamp flickered ominously. Her neighbors loomed at a distance, watching her frantic search with expressions that twisted from pity to unease. Their smiles had been replaced by frowns, their eyes avoiding contact. Something was off. Where was Emma? Her mind spiraled back to that figure lurking by the school. Why was he there? What did he want? The chase morphed from something she could control into a desperate scream against the night. With trembling hands, Clara gripped a flashlight, racing back toward the haunted property. It felt like stepping into a nightmare. Each step sent adrenaline coursing through her veins, but doubt cut deeper. Was he watching from the darkness? The shadows seemed to mock her, whispering secrets she wished to forget. She spotted movement through the cracked windows, a pair of glinting eyes fixated on her. The predator had a different target now, and with a surge of terror, Clara understood, time was slipping away. The hunt had begun. The question tore through her heart: who would find Emma first? Clara's breath snagged in her throat as she stepped closer to the gaping maw of the old Lincoln High School. The surrounding trees, twisted in ugly shapes, jutted out like claws against the evening sky, and a thick fog started to roll in, wrapping around her like a shroud, distorting her vision. The flashlight trembled in her grip, casting frantic beams across the dilapidated walls plastered with graffiti, echoes of laughter trapped in decay. She scanned the broken windows, terrified that any flicker of movement would reveal the man who haunted her thoughts. But what if it wasn't just him hiding in those shadows? A sharp chill shot through her, freezing every ounce of resolve she had. Clara's heart thundered louder with every cautious step. "Emma!" She called out again, her voice cracking, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. Was her friend simply lost, or was someone or something keeping her away? As if in answer, a soft rustle came from the tall grass beside the school. Clara's eyes darted toward the sound, her instinct screaming at her to run. But she was too far gone, trapped by a mix of fear and urgency. The rustle turned into a low snicker, sending a new wave of terror coursing through her veins. It wasn't just the figure anymore, it's what lay beneath the surface of that twisted laughter that truly horrified her. Climbing the old stone steps into the schoolyard felt like crossing a threshold into madness. The door hung ajar, creaking ominously as she nudged it open. Each step on the old floorboards groaned, protesting her intrusion. The air was thick, suffocating with the age and neglect that permeated every corner, every crack. It was here that Clara sensed the shift, like the building itself was alive, watching her, waiting. Whispers echoed around her, words too slurred to comprehend but heavy with malice. Shadows flitted past the edges of her flashlight, dancing just out of reach. Were they figments of her imagination or remnants of horrors that had once been contained here? She pressed deeper, the weight of despair growing heavier. She needed to find Emma. She had to know if she was safe. Clara turned a corner and found herself in what was once the gymnasium. Dust motes hovered like trapped souls under the beams of her light. A chill swept through the room, and icy breath streamed down her neck. "Emma?" she shouted, her voice nearly breaking into a sob. From the far end, a shadow shifted unnaturally. Clara froze, heart racing. The light caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure, a girl, thin and angular, staring with hollow eyes. Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. "Emma?" The specter smiled. Not a friendly smile, but something far more sinister, twisting the very notion of familiarity. "Help me!" the figure cried out, before vanishing into thin air as the lights flickered violently above. Clara blinked, and the air turned electric, thick with warning. An unsettling laugh floated through the room, and suddenly, the whispers turned into a cacophony, echoing off the walls. She stumbled back, ramming into something solid. A hand gripped her shoulder, cold and heavy. Clara spun around, the flashlight beam piercing the darkness. It landed on the man from the schoolyard. He was closer than before. His eyes gleamed with a palpable hunger, and he stepped forward, blocking her escape. "Leave while you can," he hissed, "or the darkness will take you too." Panic surged in her chest, pushing her legs to move, but all she could do was stare into the pitch-black void behind him. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows, another voice called out. "Clara! Help me!" Her heart stuttered. Emma? Where was she? The man grinned wider, his laughter slicing through her nerves like glass. The darkness writhed, reaching out for her, clawing at her resolve. Time was running out. Would she save Emma or plunge deeper into this twisted nightmare? She took a step back, prepared to run, but a menacing whisper echoed in her mind, "You can never escape." As Clara gathered her strength, she knew she had to choose her next move carefully or risk everything. What had she awakened? Clara's mind raced as she wrestled with her fear. The man's warning echoed in her ears, and the last remnants of resolve crumbled like dust. "Emma!" she screamed again, desperation clawing at her throat. But the darkness swallowed her voice, leaving only the chilling silence that seeped into her bones. The man's gaze was like ice, pinning her in place. "You don't understand the world you've entered," he breathed, his voice low and smooth, dripping with malice. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but her feet felt rooted to the floor, shackled by the weight of the unknown. "Let me go," she finally managed, tugging at her trapped shoulder. He merely smiled, a sickly curve of lips that spoke of secrets better left buried. The shadows behind him flickered, contorting into shapes that loomed and lunged from the corners of her vision. "Do you truly wish to find your friend? Or would you rather keep playing the hero?" His eyes flickered with dark amusement as he leaned closer, brushing a fingertip against her cheek. An icy touch that sent tremors rippling through her body. Clara shuddered, summoning whatever strength remained. In a burst of adrenaline, she slipped past him, sprinting toward the gym's exit. The laughter swelled behind her, deepening her panic. The darkness seemed to stretch and thicken, closing in like a vice, whispering promises of pain and despair. "Emma!" She yelled again, the syllables breaking as she ran. The beams of her flashlight flickered, sparking momentarily, then dying, plunging her into utter darkness. Heart pounding like a drum, Clara felt her way along the walls, her hands grazing the cold, crumbling plaster, each second a painful reminder that time was slipping away. Then, through the oppressive blackness, a faint light flickered, a soft glow emanating from a doorway at the far end of the gym. Was it hope? Or was it another trap? Clara hesitated only a moment before she darted toward it, driven by a primal instinct to save Emma. As she neared the threshold, the whispers morphed into a chorus of cries, anguished, pleading, demanding. Clara skidded to a halt, breathless and shaken. Whatever lay beyond that doorway may not be salvation but something far worse. Yet the lurking fear of losing Emma pushed her forward. The grip of the unknown tightened around her. Stepping through the doorway, she felt an icy draft. Her breath came out in misty puffs, and the glow brightened, revealing a narrow hallway lined with lockers, exuding a putrid smell that churned her stomach. She hesitated, nausea curling in her gut, but it was the undeniable weight of sadness that made her stomach drop. The lockers were smeared with rust and grime, their surfaces marred by ancient scratches that hinted at a tortured past. "Clara!" a voice drifted from somewhere in the hallway. "Emma!" she cried, recognizing the desperation in the call. Guided by her friend's voice, she stepped further, the glow of whatever source illuminating the path but casting dark shadows that danced menacingly along the walls. But then the shadows flickered unnaturally, and a cacophony of whispers erupted around her. The voices no longer sounded human. They were twisted, guttural, taunting, filling her with dread. Had she become a part of their world too? Was she trapped in a loop of horror set within these walls? "Help me!" Emma's voice cut through the chaos, echoing from a door at the end of the corridor. The air grew heavier, charged with malicious anticipation. Clara could almost feel the claws of the darkness reaching for her, daring her to come closer, and in the midst of it all, a strange certainty emerged, a sinister awareness that she was not alone. The shadows coalesced, forming a figure, blocking her way as it moved with supernatural speed. Clara's breath caught in her throat, and she stood at the precipice of choice once more: fight or flight, hope or despair. "Turn back, Clara!" The figure screeched, voice distorted and chilling as its hollow eyes bore into her. But turning back was no longer an option. The choice was made as she plunged deeper into darkness. Toward the faint cry of her friend. What awaited her in that light? Would it bring clarity or further plunge her into horror? Clara's feet pounded against the cold, hard floor as she dashed toward the doorway. Each echoing heartbeat matched the rhythm of her panic, the whispers clawing at her sanity. She had to reach Emma. The cries resonated deep inside, drawing her closer to the source of despair. The hallway stretched out before her, the flickering light revealing glimpses of familiar surroundings twisted into something beyond recognition. Lockers that once held the weight of teenage memories now seemed like tombs of lost voices. A putrid smell abruptly invaded her senses, a mix of sweat and decay that sent bile rising in her throat. "Clara!" the voice beckoned again, softer this time. Hope and dread fought for dominance as she moved forward, her fingers grazing the edges of the lockers, feeling their cold metal glisten subtly with sweat. Suddenly, the figure that had lurked in the shadows slipped into view, its features obscured but its presence undeniable. Clara's heart kicked into overdrive. She had entered a limbo where time twisted and wrapped around her, creating an atmosphere ripe with tension. "Help me!" Emma's voice grew stronger, yet Clara could hear an edge of something else, something that chilled her blood, fear masked by urgency. It was as if the sound were being warped, distorted through warped dimensions. "Leave her alone!" Clara shouted, but the sound of her own voice felt weak, drowned out by the whispers that clawed at her mind, urging her to surrender to the darkness. "Turn back, Clara!" the figure whispered, its hollow eyes dancing with every flicker of light. What are you? Clara demanded, forcing herself to confront the entity blocking her path. The figure surged forward, revealing twisted limbs where hands should be. Shadows twisted into jagged teeth, a mouth that grinned wide, a grin that promised torment yet to be revealed. Fear surged, threatening to swallow her whole. She felt trapped, lost, like a rat in a maze. But then she remembered Emma. The thought ignited a desperate spark inside her. With a sudden burst of determination, she sidestepped the figure and sprinted past it. Clara. The urgency of Emma's tone propelled her forward. Each step deeper into the corridor heightened her awareness. The air thickened, pressing against her lungs as if the very atmosphere conspired against her. She reached a door at the end of the hallway, pulse racing as she turned the handle. It creaked open, revealing a small room bathed in that eerie glow. Empty, save for a single figure hunched in the corner. Clara's breath caught. "Emma?" she called out, voice trembling. The figure turned, cloaked in shadows. It was a sight she'd never expected. Emma's face, once full of life, now twisted and disfigured, marred by an ethereal light as if she wasn't fully present in this world. Clara recoiled, horror gripping her as realization sank in. This was not her friend but a corrupt echo, a reflection of something far darker. "Help me!" Emma's mouth moved, and yet, the sound that came forth was but a hollow echo, devoid of authenticity. Clara staggered back, her heart pounding loudly in her ears, as she suddenly felt the darkness creeping back, tightening like a snake ready to strike. She realized the figure from the hallway was behind her now, its breath icy against her neck. "Choose," it rasped, a challenge laced with malice. Staring at the distorted silhouette of Emma, then at the menacing figure behind her, the weight of decision bore down on Clara like a storm. A thought flickered through her mind, a truth she was terrified to accept. "What am I supposed to choose?" she screamed, her voice breaking. The echo bounced around her as silence filled the room. "Choose, Clara," came the whisper, and in that moment, she understood that the true horror was yet to reveal itself. What had she awakened? And could she save Emma, or was there something sinister that tied them both to this dark fate? With a primal scream, Clara reached for the door, but would she find an escape or step further into the abyss? Clara slammed the door shut, heart racing, the weight of the air heavy and claustrophobic. Panic surged through her as she leaned against the door, gasping for breath, desperate to escape the clutches of the thing that haunted her. But silence reigned, broken only by the distant echo of Emma's distorted pleas. What was left of her sanity flickered like a dying bulb. She clenched her fists, the cold sweat trickling down her back. "What do you want from me?" she whispered into the darkness, hoping for some answer, though knowing that fate could be more twisted than she anticipated. The walls around her seemed to pulse, as if alive. She pushed herself away from the door, the echoes of Emma's voice still vibrating in her mind like an ominous chant. "Help me." Would those words haunt her forever? Or would they push her, drive her deeper into despair? Clara looked around the dimly lit room. Graffiti marred the walls, twisted symbols that seemed to shift under her gaze. Each mark felt like a warning, or a curse. She stepped carefully, boots scuffing against the rough floor, making her acutely aware of every noise in this unnatural silence. "Emma!" she called again, her voice barely above a whisper. Would the real Emma even hear her through this veil of shadows? The darkness seemed to breathe, exhaling whispers that bore no comfort but instead tightened their grip around her throat. Suddenly, a soft scratching noise drew her attention back to the corner where Emma's reflection had been. Clara's pulse quickened as she squinted into the shadow. It shifted, trembled, and then she saw it, a human hand. "Clara." The voice was clearer now, more poignant. It clawed at her heart, pulling her towards the figure trapped in the dark. With every step, her breath became more ragged, each pulse of her heart syncopating with the mounting terror until she reached her friend or what was left of her. Clara's heart sank. There was Emma, not wholly there, partially submerged in shadows, a prisoner of the darkness that devoured her smile. You're not Emma," she stammered, the realization crashing over her like icy water. "Help me," the figure groaned, but now it was twisted, jagged like broken glass. "You'll never know until you choose, Clara." The entity's words drifted in the air. "What kind of choice can I even make?" she dared to ask. The pressure in the room shifted, and the reflection of Emma loomed larger, grotesque, almost merging with the dark entity that had chased her. "Choose, save the friend you adore or embrace the darkness and escape." It was a seductive whisper, laced with malice. Clara felt it seep into her bones, filling her with that desperate urge to act, yet suffocated by terror at the implications. The floor shook slightly, an ominous tremor that pulled her awareness. She turned back to the door. Could she flee again? The essence of survival poured through her veins, but she hesitated. What if this was all a trap? Clara. It was Emma this time. A flicker of the flesh and spirit danced in her eyes, something real, something wrapped in desperation. "Help me escape this place. You can end this." But was it real, or a trick played by the shadows? Clara felt the pull of the decision gnaw at her. Save her friend? Or turn her back and risk the unknown horrors awaiting beyond the door? With the entity closing in, its presence suffocating, Clara hesitated. "No more tricks," she yelled. Then it hit her, this wasn't about escaping. It was about sacrifice. Something would have to be given up. Choose. The echo smothered her, threatening to drown her in despair. In that moment, Clara grasped the truth that it was more than just a door. It was the boundary between the world she knew and one filled with unimaginable dread. Could she face the darkness? Would she turn to save the remnants of her friend, or would she choose to escape the nightmare at a price she could only begin to imagine? As fear twisted within her, uncertainty raced along her spine, Clara was left with a single unyielding thought: what would she be willing to sacrifice? Whispers began to creep into her mind, and as they coiled tighter, a single cold truth reverberated through her memory: sometimes the path to salvation unlocks darker doors than we can imagine. The room shuddered with tension. Clara felt the weight of the shadows creeping closer, wrapping around her like cold fingers. "What do I choose?" she asked the darkness, something primal igniting inside her. The air grew cooler, reflecting her doubt as it stole at her breath. "Only you can decide, Clara." The voice was both familiar and foreign, echoing with a chilling emptiness that slipped through her fingers like mist. Emma's face loomed larger, the shadows stretching around her, almost begging. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was staring into something far more sinister than just her friend. The scratching noise from the corner intensified, sending shivers racing down her spine. Clara's instincts screamed for her to flee. But where would she go? Outside was uncharted terror. Inside was a malignancy personified. The choice twisted inside her, gnarly and slow, each option bringing its own suffocating dread. "Help me, Clara." The sound was sharp, snapping her focus back to Emma. Those once familiar eyes glinted dangerously, revealing unrecognizable depths. "Don't let them have me." Desperation clawed at her chest, each beat of her heart a countdown, a ticking reminder that time was running out. "Stay back," she yelled at the lurking shadows, unable to predict how they would twist around her next. The walls felt mournful, closing in, suffocating her, and she stumbled back into the oppressive grip of despair. It was then she noticed the ground beneath her. The grimy floorboards began to glisten, lights reflecting not light, something darker, something reminiscent of blood. "Clara, the choice." Emma's voice was fainter now, swallowed by the shadows. In that moment, Clara felt something shift in the air, a wave of darkness rolling through, pregnant with unspoken horrors. The shadows whispered promises of safety, harsh, teeth-baring smiles that revealed what lay beneath. The panicked thoughts raced like wildfires in her mind. If she stepped forward, what would she become? A savior or a puppet in this gruesome play? And if she backed away, could she live knowing she left Emma behind? The scratching grew louder. Clara snapped her attention back to the corner. The hand that had first crept forth was now clawing at the wooden wall, tearing it apart, fragments splintering into the air. With it came a howl, a wail that transcended everything she knew. It wasn't just Emma. It was a collective agony, a chorus of all those who had been lost to the blackness that loomed over them. Clara! You cannot hide from the choice. The voice echoed off the walls, each syllable vibrating with menace. The shadows quaked with glee, reveling in the tension they had woven so well that in that instant, Clara understood it wasn't just her friend in peril. It was her own soul dangling in the balance. Could she willingly sacrifice her essence to save another? The moral weight pressed on her, thick and suffocating, as blood pooled at her feet, an offering she hadn't yet wanted to make. Make your choice. The room bellowed, everything freezing: time, air, hope. Clara could feel the shadows beckon her towards their abyss, a siren song she felt in her bones. It was intoxicating. It promised escape, temptation, the whisper of safety within its depths, but at what cost? What would emerge from the void should she plunge into its embrace? Clara sucked in a breath, feeling every fiber of her being pull taut. No! She screamed, racing against the shadows clawing for her sanity. Yet she stood paralyzed, caught in the primal terror of what lay ahead. Suddenly, Emma's form flickered, the darkness wavering as the echoes intensified. Choose, Clara. The urgency bore down. Would she reach for her friend and risk becoming part of the shadows? Or could she stand strong, fight back, and face the horror that awaited? With trembling hands and a heart torn between love and fear, Clara gripped the doorway, readying herself for whatever decision awaited her. What would happen if she opened the door? What truth lay hidden just beyond? The door loomed before Clara, its surface fractured and worn, resonating with an energy that felt both inviting and terrifying. She placed her palm against the splintered wood, the chill coursing through her, making her limbs tremble. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears like the pounding of distant drums, a rhythm weaving through her fear. She exhaled shakily, a desperate attempt to find clarity amidst the storm raging inside her head. "What's out there?" she whispered, the darkness responding with palpable silence. If she opened the door, would she plunge into salvation or damnation? Clara, the voice was barely a whisper now, close yet impossibly far away. Emma's face flickered in her mind like an old film reel, static and broken. "You have to trust me." Trust? How could Clara trust the thing wearing her friend's face? An amalgamation of love and horror twisted within her. The scratching in the corner erupted again, now frantic, aggressive. It stopped just short of a shout, replaced by guttural murmurs as the shadows looped closer. They were hungry. They were watching. "Open the door." The voice surged like a wave, splintering her resolve. If she refused to act, would she lose everything? Would Emma fade into the shadows, becoming just another lost echo? Clara steeled herself, her breath quickening as she gripped the handle tighter. She could draw courage from anger or perhaps from despair. What would she risk? What lurked beyond that threshold? Would opening it mean sacrificing who she was, melting into the void alongside Emma? With a rush of adrenaline, Clara turned the handle. The door groaned, straining against its hinges as if relieved to be released from its prison. She pushed it open, hard in her throat. Darkness stretched out like fingers, coiling and weaving in and out of existence. A thick fog poured forth, swirling around her ankles and beckoning her to step inside. The room beyond was a pale imitation of the place she stood in, warped by sinister angles and an oppressive silence that weighed heavily in the air. "Clara, please." Emma's voice was desperate now. It was as if every ounce of their shared memories pressed against her heart, begging her not to let go. As Clara shifted closer, the fog slithered too, curling around her legs like a snake, pulling her toward the abyss before her. "What do you want?" Clara shouted into the void, her voice carrying an edge of defiance, but deep inside, she trembled. The shadows whispered again, this time, words formed, chilling and taunting, echoing her fears. Join us. All will be revealed. A flash of light erupted bright and blinding, momentarily illuminating the chaos. Clara's breath hitched in her throat. In that instant, she saw faces within the fog, countless eyes alight with sorrow and longing, mouths opening in silent screams. Not just Emma, there were others, faces she once recognized, drifting like memories from a forgotten childhood. Help! They cried, their voices merging into a single shrill pitch that cut through her heart. Clara recoiled, the force of their collective despair lashes against her skin. No! She stumbled back, nearly losing her balance as something flickered above, an entity far larger than she was, hovering just outside the reach of light. Make the choice, Clara. The command rang through her, forcing her to confront the chilling reality. Whatever this was, it wanted her. Perhaps it wanted her to lead, to become one of them. As the light dimmed again, shadows poured back in, warping the air, looming like sentinels ready to claim their prize. Clara's breath quickened. Would she walk away from this, forever haunted, or would she dive deeper into the unknown? Was there a chance to save Emma? Was it worth everything she had? The question surged through her, relentless and heavy. With one last look back at the door, Clara made a decision, one that would change everything, for better or worse. Emma, I'm coming. She shouted, stepping fully into the swirling darkness, letting it envelop her like a shroud, and then, just like that, she disappeared beneath the terrifying embrace. The door slamming shut behind her, what awaited her within that darkness, and what choices would she face next? The darkness was thick, a smothering blanket that clung to Clara like damp wool. Panic surged within her as she stumbled forward, unsure of her footing. Every step felt heavy, as if invisible chains held her back, while the shadows danced around her, whispering secrets meant to chill her to the bone. Emma's voice came again, softer now, but laced with something that twisted Clara's stomach. Was it fear? Desperation? Trust me. The weight of those words bore down on her. Trust? In something this unfamiliar? She squeezed her eyes shut, momentarily blocking out the writhing darkness. Breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, almost drowning out the sinister murmurs that surrounded her. With a clenching dread, Clara opened her eyes. The darkness shimmered, revealing fleeting glimpses of familiar silhouettes, friends, family, loved ones. They hovered like ghostly sentinels, their expressions contorted in emotional agony, mouths moving silently as if they were trapped in their own personal hell. Clara? A familiar face emerged from the fog, a friend from years past, her expression frozen in a silent scream. Panic coiled tightly in Clara's throat. Help, please. No. Clara shouted, shaking her head as if to clear the fog from her mind. I can't help you. But the moment she spoke those words, she regretted them. A wave of sorrow washed over her, drowning her in a torrent of grief. Suddenly, the fog coalesced into a shape right before her, a figure draped in shadows, inching closer, its eyes like black holes that drew in all light. Open yourself to us, Clara. Your friends are waiting. They want you to be with them forever. The words slithered into her mind, planting seeds of doubt. What if this was her chance? What if she could save them, set them free? Clara. Emma's voice rose above the echoes, piercing through the haze. You can't trust them. They're liars. Her heart raced. Either choice could lead to oblivion. Clara clenched her fists, fighting the urge to turn back, feeling the pull of the shadows grow stronger. They pulsated with an energy that felt akin to a pulse, alive and insatiable. I won't let you take me. The defiance surged within her, sharper now, contrasting with the fear that threatened to consume her. Clara stepped back, breathing heavily as the shadows hissed in response, a low growl that reverberated like thunder. Then join us. The figure shrieked, its voice rising, drowning the cries of the lost souls all around her. The darkness rippled, twisting in on itself as if trying to drag her down into the very floor beneath her feet. Just then, a pulse of light flickered above, illuminating a way forward, a narrow path amidst the swirling chaos. It beckoned, warm and bright against the obsidian void. Clara hesitated, torn between the light and the shadow's seductive call. "Clara, you have to choose." Emma's voice trembled with urgency. "That light is your only chance. Don't look back. It was now or never." Clara took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage left within her. She dashed toward the light, the shadows snapping at her heels, furious at her defiance. Each step felt like running through quicksand, the air thick with the weight of despair. As she neared the beam, the shadows lunged, their grasp tightening around her ankles. Screams echoed, merging with the tempest. Clara knew she had to break free. She could feel time slipping away. "Hold on, Emma!" Clara screamed as she lunged toward the light, knowing it was the only path that could lead her back to herself and potentially save Emma. In that final moment of struggle, would she be able to break free, or would the shadows claim her, leaving only echoes of her existence? The grip of darkness tightened, pulling her back at the last moment. What fate awaited her on the other side of that light, and would she ever escape the shadows that sought to consume her? The light enveloped Clara, a warm embrace that pushed back against the suffocating grip of darkness. For a fleeting moment, she felt weightless, suspended in a realm where shadows held no power. But just as quickly, that sensation shattered. With a ferocious jolt, she was pulled through the barrier, landing hard on the ground. The air tasted stale, like old ghosts hiding in every corner, and the light flickered behind her as if immune to the encroaching night. Panic surged again, but she forced herself to rise, determined. The new environment was a ghost of familiarity, a room that looked like her childhood bedroom. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper, the colors dulled by time. A soft hum droned somewhere in the background. Clara felt a shiver crawl down her spine. "Emma!" she shouted, scanning the room. "Where are you?" The silence that followed was unsettling, more oppressive than the darkness she had just escaped. Alone, she glanced around, her breath quickening with each passing second, each tick of an unseen clock. Her room, but not as she remembered it. The furniture stood askew, shadows lurking in the corners, whispering secrets that pricked at her skin. "Why did I listen to you?" she muttered to herself, pressing her hands against her face. Emma had felt so real, so certain. And yet, Clara had almost slipped further into that abyss. As she moved to the door, it creaked open, revealing a dim hallway stretching endlessly before her. The walls felt alive, breathing with a disconcerting rhythm, soft and sinister, almost mocking her hesitation. With a deep breath, she stepped through the doorway, the floorboards creaking underneath her weight, each sound amplified by the eerie stillness. "Emma!" Clara cried again, her voice wavering. She walked forward, her heart pounding against her chest as dread pooled in her stomach. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Just ahead, in the flickering shadows cast by a dying bulb, she saw a figure tall, shrouded in darkness, yet distinctly familiar. Was it the shadow figure from before? Had it followed her? Clara froze, terror gripping her. Clara, the voice was gentle yet chilling, drenched in sorrow. Clara recognized it instantly. "Mom?" The figure stepped forward into the dim light, but the familiarity twisted into something grotesque. Her mother's face, once full of warmth, now reflected a tortured anguish that ripped through Clara's heart. The eyes that once sparkled with kindness were now glazed over, brimming with unshed tears. "Help me," her mother whispered, the words echoing in the tight hallway. "You must let me go." Panic seized Clara as she stepped back. "I don't know how." She felt the air grow colder, the room narrowing as if the walls themselves were tightening around her. "Trust me, Clara. I'm still here." A sharp noise interrupted, like nails scraping glass. Clara's skin prickled as she turned, the shadows growing heavier, swirling around her feet like a storm darkening the horizon. Faces emerged from the depths, loved ones and friends, their eyes pleading yet empty. "Clara, please, it's so dark here." Their voices intermingled, blending into chaotic lamentations. Grasping at her mind, the figure of her mother drew closer, the despair etched on her features shimmering with unshed words. "You have to choose. We need you." The decision was pressing, an unbearable weight on her chest. Trust the light? Or trust the people she had lost? As the shadows lunged closer, entrapping her in their cold embrace, a memory surged within her. Mom's laughter, Emma's encouragement, the warmth of summer. "I refuse to let you take me," Clara shouted. And then something in her snapped, a thread of determination igniting within the chaos. But as Clara turned to run, the darkness split open to reveal an even deeper abyss. A heavy breath washed over her, the air stinking of despair. What lay beyond? The figure of her mother stretched a hand forward, eyes begging. "Clara, please don't abandon us." Would she flee into another darkness, or would she reach for her mother, faced with an impossible choice that could seal her fate? The shadows closed in, and the boundaries of reality began to distort. Time slipped, and Clara stood on the brink, heart racing, as the figure of despair loomed before her. What would become of Clara when faced with the true cost of love and sacrifice in this entangling, warped world? The room pulsed with darkness, a weight bearing down on Clara as the ghostly shapes of her loved ones cried out for her. Their faces, twisted with sorrow yet full of longing, crumbled her resolve. She felt herself teetering on the edge of a tremendous choice: abandon them or risk becoming a part of their pain. Each plea cut through her heart like shards of glass. "You can't save us." The shadows bellowed, a cacophony of voices laced with frustration. Clara's breath quickened, every inhalation serrated with dread. She turned toward her mother, whose once tender eyes now held a desolate emptiness. "Mom, I'm scared," she finally admitted, tears blurring her vision. "Don't be, Clara. You belong with us, and we belong with you." Her mother's hollow voice shimmered like a mirage, both inviting and suffocating. Clara's pulse thundered with the certainty that the shadows were closing in, encircling her, hungry for despair, but there was something beneath the terror, a flicker of strength. Love surged through her, threading through the shackles of fear like light through cracks in stone. "No!" she shouted, voice quivering yet fierce. "I won't let you take me down with you." She grasped the handle of the door behind her, ready to turn back to the light she had once fought to reach. But shifting shadows clawed at her ankles, dragging her closer to the grotesque figures of her past. "Clara, help us!" they cried, and in that moment, she felt the weight of countless souls pressing upon her, begging, insisting. "Enough!" she bellowed, a wild desperation igniting her spirit. The swirling shadows halted briefly, and for a heartbeat, silence enveloped them all. Clara summoned all her energy, picturing the warmth of sunlight breaking through the stormy clouds of her reality. "Love does not chain or haunt. It frees," she declared, summoning the full strength of her heart. The darkness wavered, shadows flickering in agitation. Dancing amid their outrage, she broke through their stronghold, letting the force of her unwavering will seep into every crevice. In that moment, Clara embraced her fears and treasures alike, understanding that love is not about losing oneself, but in sharing strength, both light and dark. She took a step forward, hand outstretched toward her mother and the faces of friends, letting them both feel that love and sorrow are intricately woven. "Mom, I love you," she shouted, not as an apology, but as a promise. The shadows recoiled, their grip waning, the whispering cries transforming into anguished howls of despair. "You cannot leave us," they screamed, voices drenched in bitterness, but Clara, fueled by the warmth of her memories, the laughter, the joy, wasn't giving in. With a resolute push, she wrenched from the suffocating darkness and flung the door open wide. Brilliant light poured forth, consuming the shadows that once laughed and taunted. It enveloped her like a protective embrace, illuminating the sorrow entrenched in her memories and replacing it with hope. The cries of her loved ones faded, transforming into sighs of acceptance. As the shock of light engulfed Clara, she was pulled forth from the darkness of those haunted halls, pulled back to the surface, to the world she once knew. The sweet, clean air filled her lungs as she stumbled into the sunlight, the warmth wrapping around her like a loving hug. "Clara!" A voice cried out, and she turned to see Emma, smiling, standing among the trees, the worry in her friend's eyes dissipating like mist. Clara rushed forward, collapsing into Emma's embrace. "You're back." The relief suffused Clara, mingling with tears of joy. "I thought I lost you," she said, clinging tightly. Emma shook her head. "You saved us both." Clara knew what she had chosen. She had chosen the light. But she also couldn't forget those who remained trapped in darkness. "I won't forget," she murmured, looking back at the old school looming afar, the whispers long silenced but forever lingering in her heart. Hand in hand, Clara and Emma walked away, into the sunlight, ready to live life even as the shadows threatened to return. Clara now held the strength of herself and the love that freed. It was a bittersweet farewell, but the bond forged by dark and light would guide them as they kept moving forward. Each step a reminder of the choices made, not just to save, but to bridge despair with hope. Now it's your turn. If you love this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories that are about to unfold. Smash that like button now. Trust me, it fuels the algorithm and helps these stories reach those who need them most. And remember to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories, because your thoughts matter. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who crave this kind of adventure. Your support is the heart of this channel.